The US dollar, has lost over 95% of its purchasing power since the creation of the Federal Reserve back in 1913. Let's put this number into perspective. If your great-grandfather put $10,000 cash into a box and saved it for you, today you would have $10,000 cash. The problem is that because the dollar has lost over 95% of its purchasing power, although you would have $10,000 cash, it will buy a whole lot less than it could have in 1913. Now, if you put that $10,000 into an asset like gold, which is a huge hedge against inflation, you would have been able to buy a little over 483 ounces of gold back in 1913. That would be worth almost $1 million today at the time I'm shooting this video, and that is with the price of gold being extremely undervalued. Hopefully that helps explain how much the dollar has lost in value since 1913 and puts it in perspective for you. And you want to know what's even scarier? Let me show you with a little chart, and it shows the devaluation of the US dollar from 1913 to 2015. As you can see from this chart, the US dollar only had a devaluation of 300% for the first 60% of the time frame from 1913 to 1971. Then for the last 40% of the time frame from 1971 to 2015, it had a devaluation of over 2,000%, and that trend continues today. This graph just cuts off at 2015. Actually, it's got even worse after the pandemic, when the US money supply grew by $3.8 trillion in 2020, which is equal to 20% of all dollars ever created, and it happened in 1 year. I'm going to get to why this is so important in just a minute, but to lead into this, let's look at why the dollar started losing so much value after 1971. Before 1971, there was always some type of gold standard when it came to the dollar. This means that for every dollar created, there was gold backing it. For a long time, it was a 1-to-1 ratio, meaning that for every $1, there was $1 of gold backing it. Then when the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 was created, they allowed a 40% reserve ratio. This means that they could put $50 into circulation for every $20 of backed gold. After the devastation that World War I and World War II caused, there was a meeting in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire to agree on a system of economic order and international cooperation that would help countries recover and foster long-term global growth. This is when the Bretton Woods system was started, where every currency on the planet, with the exception of a few, will be backed by the US dollar, backed by gold at $35 an ounce. This pegged all the world's currencies to each other through the dollar to gold. But there was one major problem with the Bretton Woods system. There was no reserve ratio established where the US had to have a certain amount of gold for however many dollars were created. The US did a bunch of deficit spending to fund things like the Korean and Vietnam Wars. That means we were spending more than we had, which means we were basically printing money. In the 1960s, Charles de Gaulle, who was the president of France, realized that the US didn't have the gold to back up the dollars. So, France asked for their gold in dollars, and other countries started following suit. The US lost 50% of its gold from 1959 to 1971. See, the US had committed a fraud by committing more receipts than there was actually for gold, and the market sensed it. By 1971, after already giving up over 50% of its gold, there was still 12 times more dollars than there was gold to back it up. So this forced President Nixon to take us off the gold standard and end the Bretton Woods system. Because if he paid off gold until it got to zero, the entire worldwide monetary system would have collapsed, as it couldn't have been done. It couldn't have been paid. So on August 15, 1971, somehow Nixon convinced the world to agree to the fact that foreign governments could no longer exchange their dollars for gold. He ordered for the gold window to be closed, and at this time, all of the world currencies became fiat currencies. So, what is a fiat currency? Well, it is government-issued money that isn't backed by a physical commodity such as gold and silver. Instead, it is backed by the government that issued it. Yeah, awesome. So, the world obviously didn't do its research. There's been thousands of fiat currencies, and they have a 100% failure rate. That's an astounding 0% success rate. The difference this time, the whole world is on a fiat currency system. So back to the chart. Do you now maybe understand why there was such a large devaluation of the dollar starting in 1971? It's because now there is nothing backing the dollar. Gold provided a self-regulating effect on the economy and currency, where fiat currencies empower the government to manipulate variables. And we won't even go down the rabbit hole of the Federal Reserve or how much the banking system profits off the fiat currency system. They want you to use their currency because they profit from it and They control the system. That is why they don't want you investing in gold. For those that are properly educated, this is a very scary time in a way, but it's also a very exciting time in a way. It's scary in the sense that if you understand what's going on, you know it's only a matter of time before the hammer drops, and we are likely going to see the biggest economic catastrophe that's ever happened. It will make the 2008 financial crisis look like a little speed bump. It's exciting in a sense that if you're educated and you know what's happened throughout history, we are likely going to see the largest wealth transfer that has ever happened. Remember that in times of economic catastrophes, wealth is never lost, it's simply transferred. And it's transferred to those people that had the right investment at the right time. I highly suggest you continue your education on this topic. If you're already someone in the know, I suggest you go to investingingold.com/quiz to find the right gold investment company for your needs. It takes just 30 seconds for the quiz. I know. The whole they control the money and they control the media and they control what you see and what you hear and they control the narrative is very conspiracy theorist. What I'm recommending is that you look at the facts, okay? Look at the history. I think you'll see that this actually isn't very crazy at all. And let me ask you a question. If there was a pickup basketball game, right? And let's say there was two teams and there was no referee and the winning team got $10,000. Do you think anyone would cheat? You'd be naive to think not. So if people would cheat for $10,000, do you think people wouldn't cheat for millions of dollars? Think people wouldn't cheat for billions of dollars? You think people wouldn't cheat for trillions of dollars? And if you understand the way the system is set up, it basically allows the government and banking system to legally cheat. Look, do your research, educate yourself. This is one of the most important times ever to do so.